What if the man who just collapsed bleeding in your lap wasn't just any man? What if he was the most powerful alpha king alive? And the moment your hand touched his wound, something ancient inside you woke up screaming one word: mate. Chapter 1. Dust and Dismissal. Lila Evergreen had learned early that the world didn't owe kindness to people like her. At 24, she still lived in the same cramped one-room apartment above the bookstore, the kind of place where the pipes groaned like dying animals and the radiator hissed threats every winter. Her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror showed tired hazel eyes, ink-stained fingers, and hair the color of weak tea that refused to behave no matter how many times she twisted it into a knot. Today had been particularly cruel. Mr. Hargrove, her boss for the last 4 years, had spent the morning barking orders while she balanced on a rickety ladder, dusting shelves no one ever touched. "Faster, girl. You move like you're made of wet paper." When a pack enforcer, a broad-shouldered wolf in a leather jacket, had come in looking for a rare grimoire on blood oaths, Hargrove had shoved Lila aside like an inconvenient chair. "She's only here to clean," he'd said with a thin smile. "The real work is for those with teeth." The enforcer hadn't even glanced at her, just grunted and left with the book Lila had painstakingly located in the restricted stacks the night before. She'd smiled through it. She always smiled through it. Because smiling was safer than screaming, the only thing that kept her from walking out the door forever was the gift no one knew about. Not really. When her fingertips brushed damaged pages, cracked leather, torn illustrations, something inside her uncoiled like warm silk. The paper drank her touch. Seams sealed. Faded ink deepened to its original midnight blue. Torn edges kissed and fused without a scar. She called it restoration. Her mother used to call it a miracle, back when miracles still mattered in their tiny human household on the edge of pack territory. Then her mother died. Her father drank himself into silence, and the word miracle turned into something sharp and mocking. Now it was just her little secret. Useless in every practical way. She couldn't heal people with it, only objects, books mostly, old furniture sometimes, a cracked teacup once, never enough to matter, never enough to make anyone look at her twice. Except tonight. The rain started just after closing. Fat drops hammered the tall leaded windows like impatient fingers. Lila locked the front door, turned the sign to closed, and let the silence settle over her like a blanket. She pulled the Lunar Bond Codex from under the counter, the one the silk-clad she-wolf had thrown at her earlier with such contempt. The cover was split along the spine, pages yellowed and brittle. Lila sat cross-legged on the worn Persian rug behind the counter, cradled the heavy tome in her lap, and laid both palms flat against the damaged leather. She closed her eyes. A soft hum rose in her chest, not sound so much as feeling. Warmth flowed down her arms, pooled in her fingertips, seeped into the book. The crack in the spine sighed. Threads of ancient stitching pulled themselves taut. Gold leaf that had flaked away centuries ago shimmered back into place. The pages brightened, the ink darkened until the words looked freshly pressed. When she opened her eyes, the codex was perfect. More than perfect. It glowed faintly in the dim shop light, as though moonlight had been trapped between the covers. Lila traced the embossed crescent moon on the front with one finger. "Why can't you fix me?" she whispered. The book didn't answer. She was about to slide it back onto the high shelf when lightning cracked outside, close, violent, and the bell above the door rang. Even though it was locked, Lila froze. A shadow filled the doorway, tall, broad, dripping. He stepped inside without asking. Water streamed from the hem of his long black coat and puddled on the oak floorboards. Dark hair clung to his temples in wet curls. His eyes, gold, molten, impossible, swept the room like he owned every inch of it. And then they landed on her. The air changed. Something invisible hooked itself behind Lila's sternum and pulled. Hard. Her lungs forgot how to work. Her skin prickled as though static electricity lived under it now. "We're closed," she managed. Her voice sounded far away. He didn't answer right away, just inhaled, slow, deliberate, nostrils flaring. "I need the Lunar Bond Codex," he said at last, voice like distant thunder wrapped in velvet. "Third shelf, locked case." Lila's heart stuttered. She knew exactly which book he meant, the one still warm in her hands. I'm sorry, sir, that section is... He moved. One long stride carried him past the counter. Another brought him close enough that she could smell him. Pine after a lightning strike. Wood smoke. Musk so dark and rich it coated the back of her throat. And underneath it all, something primal, possessive, alive. Her knees trembled. He reached the locked glass case without looking back at her. Long fingers brushed the latch. The mechanism clicked open as though it recognized him. Then he staggered. One massive hand slammed against his ribs. Blood, thick, almost black, seeped between his fingers. A jagged piece of silver arrowhead protruded from the tear in his shirt. No, Lila breathed. He dropped to one knee. The codex slipped from his grip and thudded to the floor. Before she could think, before fear could stop her, Lila was moving. She dropped beside him, arms sliding around shoulders that felt carved from granite. His big head, wet hair cold against her neck, jaw shadowed with stubble, fell heavily into her lap as his body pitched forward. "Stay with me," she whispered, panic clawing up her throat. One hand pressed instinctively over the wound. Heat flared beneath her palm. The silver hissed like water on hot iron. The edges of torn flesh began to knit. His golden eyes snapped open, locked on hers. "Mate?" The word tore from his throat in a growl so low it vibrated through her bones. Lila's world tilted. This wasn't possible. She was nobody. Just a girl who fixed broken books. And yet the pull in her chest, the one that had started the moment he walked in, now felt like a chain made of molten gold. She was terrified. She was burning. And she couldn't look away. Chapter 2. The Last Customer. The bell's jingle still echoed in Lila's ears, even as the stranger filled the doorway like a storm cloud given form. Rain sheeted off his coat in silver rivers, pooling at his boots. He didn't ask permission to enter. He simply did. Lila's fingers tightened around the restored codex. Her pulse hammered against her throat. "We're closed," she repeated, softer this time, as though volume might make him listen. Those golden eyes found her again, sharp, unblinking, ancient. He inhaled once, deeply, and something flickered across his face. Hunger, recognition, both at once. "The Lunar Bond Codex," he said, low, commanding. "I know it's here." She should have told him to leave, called the police, run upstairs and bolted her apartment door. Instead, her feet carried her forward one reluctant step. "It's restricted," she said. "Only pack alphas are allowed." He was already moving. Long strides ate the distance between them. The scent hit her harder now, pine sharpened by lightning, smoke curling through dark musk, and something richer, almost feral, that made her lower belly clench without warning. "Why does my body do this?" she thought wildly. "Why does he smell like home I've never had?" He reached the glass case, one hand pressed to the lock. It clicked open as though charmed. His fingers, long, scarred, strong, closed around the tome. Then pain ripped through him. He lurched. A wet gasp escaped his lips. His free hand slammed over his left side. Blood welled between his fingers, dark and thick. A broken silver arrowhead jutted from torn fabric like a cruel accusation. Lila's breath stopped. He dropped. One knee hit the floorboards with a thud that vibrated up her legs. The codex slipped from his grasp and landed with a soft thump. His big shoulders bowed. His head dipped forward. Before reason could catch up, Lila was there. She sank to her knees. Her arms wrapped around him, awkward, desperate, as his massive frame pitched toward her. His wet hair slapped cold against her neck, his cheek pressed to her collarbone. The weight of him was crushing and perfect all at once. "Stay with me," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please." Her right hand found the wound without thinking, palm flat against sticky warmth. Heat flared under her skin, familiar, bright, alive. The silver hissed like it was angry. Torn flesh began to edge together. The arrowhead shimmered, then dissolved into nothing. His breathing steadied. Golden eyes opened slowly, found hers, held. "Mate!" The word scraped out of him, raw and reverent. Lila's heart slammed so hard she thought it might break ribs. This can't be real. I fix books, not kings, not wolves, not this. But the pull in her chest, the invisible chain, tightened until it hurt in the sweetest way. His scent wrapped around her like a blanket made of fire. His heat seeped through her sweater, branding her skin. She should push him away. Instead, her fingers slid into his wet hair, cradling the big weight of his head against her chest. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, something ancient woke up, and neither of them moved. Chapter 3: The Fall. Lightning split the sky again, bleaching the bookstore white for one blinding second. Thunder followed so close it rattled the glass in the windows. Lila barely noticed. All she could feel was the heavy, wet weight of the stranger's head in her lap and the frantic heat pouring from her palm into his wound. The silver arrowhead shimmered once more, angry, defiant, then melted away like frost under sun. The torn edges of flesh pulled together with a soft, wet sound. Blood stopped flowing. His breathing evened out, deep and steady against her thigh. She should have been terrified. A bleeding giant had broken into her shop. He'd called her mate. His blood stained her sweater, yet her body refused to panic. Instead, it leaned closer, as though drawn by gravity she couldn't fight. His golden eyes fluttered open. They weren't just gold. They were molten amber flecked with black, like stars drowned in honey. They locked on hers and didn't waver. "Little one." His voice was gravel wrapped in smoke. One huge hand lifted, slow, careful, and cupped the side of her face. His thumb brushed her cheek, smearing a streak of his own blood. "You healed me." Lila swallowed. Her throat felt lined with sandpaper. I don't know how, I just touch broken things, books, teacups, not people." A low rumble vibrated through his chest, not quite a laugh, closer to a purr. "You touched a king tonight." Her heart lurched. "King?" He shifted slightly, wincing, but kept his head cradled in her lap like it belonged there. His coat fell open farther. Beneath the torn shirt, muscle stacked on muscle, broad chest, carved abs, everything big and sculpted and still glistening with rain and fading blood. "I am Darius Thorn," he said quietly. "Alpha King of the Eclipse Pack." The name hit her like cold water. Everyone in the city knew that name. The youngest alpha to ever unite the fractured northern packs. The one they called the Shadow Wolf, ruthless in battle, untouchable in power, always alone. And now he was bleeding in her lap. Because of her touch. Another howl cut through the storm, closer this time. Multiple voices answered. Hunting. Kale's nostrils flared. His hand tightened on her waist. "They tracked the silver. My own beta betrayed me." Golden eyes darkened with fury. "They'll scent you on me now. You can't leave." Lila's pulse roared in her ears. The shop suddenly felt too small, the storm too loud, the man in her lap too real. She should run. Instead, her fingers threaded gently through his dark, wet hair. Outside, the pack drew nearer. Inside, the mate bond tightened like warm iron around her heart. Chapter 4: Scent and Storm. The storm turned vicious. Rain hammered the windows like claws trying to break in. Thunder rolled so deep it shook dust from the rafters. Inside the dim bookstore, the only light came from a single emergency bulb above the counter, flickering, uncertain, just like Lila's heartbeat. Kale still rested against her, his massive frame heavy but no longer limp. His breathing had steadied into long, slow pulls that stirred the hair at her temple. Every inhale dragged more of his scent into her lungs, pine sharpened by rain, smoke from ancient fires, and that dark velvet musk that made her thighs press together without permission. She should push him away. She couldn't. His hand, the one not pressed to his now-healed side, settled low on her waist. Fingers splayed wide, possessive without squeezing. Heat radiated through her thin sweater like he was branding her skin. "You're shaking," he murmured, voice rough, low. "Cold?" Lila shook her head, though her teeth chattered. Not from cold, from the electric current racing under her skin wherever he touched. Another howl pierced the night, closer, angrier. Voices answered in a chorus that raised the fine hairs on her arms. Kale tensed. His grip tightened just enough to remind her how easily he could hold her in place. "My beta," he said quietly. "Ridian. He put the silver in me. Wanted the throne without the fight." Lila swallowed. "Why?" "Power. Fear. And now..." golden eyes lifted to hers, burning. Because the moon chose a human. Some would burn the world before accepting it. Human. The word landed like a slap. She'd spent her life on the edges, serving wolves, cleaning up after them, never belonging. And now this king said she was his mate? I'm nobody, she whispered. Kale's thumb brushed the curve of her jaw, slow, deliberate. You're everything. He leaned in until his forehead rested against hers, breath warm on her lips. Your scent is carved into me, little restorer. Lilac, old paper, sunshine on stone. My wolf has been starving for you. Her chest ached with the pull. Want and terror twisted together until she couldn't tell them apart. The lights flickered out completely. Darkness swallowed them. Kale shifted, pulling her closer until she straddled his thighs, instinctive, protective. His arms banded around her like iron and velvet. You stay with me tonight, he growled softly against her ear. They won't touch what's mine. Outside, the pack hunted. Inside, the mate bond hummed like a live wire. Lila buried her face in his neck and let herself breathe him in. Just for tonight. Chapter 5, Whispers in the Dark. The power stayed dead. Only the faint emergency glow from the exit sign painted red streaks across Kale's face. Lila led him to the tiny restoration room at the back, her private space barely bigger than a closet. One narrow cot, shelves crammed with glue pots and herb jars, a single lantern she lit with trembling hands. Kale sank onto the cot. His coat hit the floor in a wet heap. The torn shirt hung open, revealing the massive chest still marked with faint pink lines where silver had bitten him. He looked smaller here, almost vulnerable, though every inch of him screamed power. Lila busied herself with the kettle on the hot plate. Anything to keep her hands moving, anything to ignore how her skin hummed when he watched her. Why me? She asked quietly back to him. You could have any she-wolf, powerful, pure blood. Why a human who fixes books? He didn't answer right away. She heard the cot creak as he shifted, then his voice, low and rough. Because my wolf has been silent for years, empty, until tonight, until you touched me and everything woke up screaming your name. She turned. He was staring at her like she was the only light left in the world. Lila set the steaming mug on the small table beside him. Her fingers brushed his when he took it. Sparks raced up her arm. He caught her wrist, gentle but firm. Pulled her closer until she stood between his spread thighs. Sit, he said softly. She hesitated, then sank onto the edge of the cot beside him, his heat wrapped around her like a second skin. Kyle set the mug aside untouched. His free hand lifted to her cheek, thumb tracing the line of her jaw. I've ruled alone since I was 19, he murmured. Fought every challenge, buried friends. Watched my mother die, cursing the moon for giving me no mate. I thought I was broken. Then you cradled my head like it mattered. Lila's throat tightened. Tears stung. I'm scared, she admitted. I've spent my life being invisible. If this is real, what happens when they see me and decide I'm not enough? His growl was instant, soft, protective. He tugged her forward until she half lay against his chest. Big arms circled her. One hand stroked slow lines down her spine. They'll see what I see, he whispered against her hair. A woman strong enough to heal a king with nothing but her hands. My Luna. My everything. Outside, howls rose and fell with the wind. Inside, Lila let herself melt into him. Just a little. Just enough to believe, for one heartbeat, that she might belong somewhere. Chapter 6, The First Touch. The lantern flame danced low, throwing gold shadows across Kale's bare chest. The wound was gone now. Only a faint silver scar remained, thin as a thread. Lila sat beside him on the narrow cot, knees drawn up, trying to ignore how every breath he took made her aware of the heat rolling off him in waves. He watched her, always watching, golden eyes soft but burning. You're still shaking, he said quietly. I'm fine. Lie. Her hands trembled when she reached for the discarded mug of tea, long cold now. Kale caught her wrist again. This time he didn't let go. His thumb stroked the inside pulse point, slow circles that sent sparks up her arm. Come here, he murmured. She should have said no. Should have stood up, put distance between them, reminded herself she was human and he was a king, and this was impossible. Instead, she let him guide her forward until she was half in his lap, straddling one thick thigh. His hands settled on her hips, big, warm, steady, not pushing, just holding. Lila's breath hitched, his scent wrapped tighter around her, pine, smoke, musk, and now something new, arousal, dark and heady, making her head spin. "Why does this feel so right?" she whispered more to herself. "Because it is." His voice was rough velvet. One hand slid up her back, fingers threading into her hair. He tugged gently, tilting her head until their foreheads touched. "My wolf has waited too long. He's starving for you." She closed her eyes. The pull in her chest was unbearable now, hot, insistent, aching. His lips brushed her temple, soft, reverent. Then her cheek, the corner of her mouth, teasing, testing. Lila made a small, helpless sound. Her hands flattened against his chest, hard muscle under warm skin. His heart thundered beneath her palms. "Tell me to stop," he growled low against her lips. She didn't. He kissed her. Slow at first, lips brushing, tasting, learning, then deeper, hungrier. His tongue swept inside and she moaned softly, fingers curling into his shoulders. One big hand cupped the back of her neck, holding her exactly where he wanted her. The other slid lower, pressing her hips down until she felt the hard length of him against her core. Heat exploded through her. She rocked instinctively, once, twice, drawing a guttural groan from his throat. "Mine," he rasped between kisses. "My little restorer. My mate." Lila broke away just enough to breathe. Her lips were swollen, cheeks flushed. "This is crazy," she panted. "Crazy feels like fate." He nuzzled her throat, lips grazing the spot where her pulse raced. Teeth scraped lightly, promise, not bite. "I want to mark you so badly it hurts." "Not yet," she breathed, even as her body arched into him. He growled softly but pulled back, just enough. Arms wrapped around her fully now, tucking her against his chest. "Then we wait, but I'm holding you all night." She melted into him, face buried in the crook of his neck. His heartbeat steadied hers. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, something fragile and fierce began to bloom. Chapter 7. Held through the night. The cot was too narrow for two, yet Cale made it work. He lay on his back, pulling Lila down until she draped across his chest like she belonged there. One thick arm banded her waist, the other hand stroked lazy circles along her spine. His body heat seeped through her clothes, steady, grounding, intoxicating. Outside, the storm howled on, but inside the small room, the world shrank to heartbeat and breath. His pine smoke scent coated every inhale, sinking deep until Lila felt it in her bones. She pressed her cheek to his bare skin, listening to the strong, even thud beneath. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" she whispered into the dark. Cale's fingers paused, then resumed their slow path. "I've faced death more times than I can count. Betrayal, war, loneliness that cuts deeper than silver." His voice dropped lower. "But you? You terrify me in the best way. Because losing you now would end me." Tears pricked her eyes. She'd spent years feeling disposable, ignored by wolves, pitied by humans, useful only for fixing what others broke. Yet here was a king holding her like glass. She shifted, chin resting on his sternum so she could see his face in the faint lantern glow. Golden eyes met hers, soft with something raw and unguarded. "I've never been wanted," she admitted, voice small. "Not like this." Cale's hand cupped her cheek. Thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized fell. "Then let me show you." He drew her up slowly until their mouths were a breath apart. The kiss was gentle this time. Slow, deep, tasting of salt and promise. No rush, just claiming in the quietest way. When they parted, he tucked her head under his chin. Big arms wrapped tighter, cocooning her completely. One leg hooked over hers, possessive even in sleep. "Sleep, little one," he murmured against her hair. "I've got you. Always." Lila closed her eyes. For the first time in years, the ache of being alone eased. His heartbeat lulled her. His scent wrapped her like a vow. She drifted off wrapped in the Alpha King's warmth, safe, wanted, and terrifyingly close to believing she could be loved. Morning would bring danger. Tonight brought peace. Chapter 8. Morning Light and Shadows. Dawn crept through the bookstore's high windows in pale, watery streaks. The storm had finally died, leaving only dripping eaves and the faint scent of wet earth. Lila stirred first, cheek still pressed to Cale's warm chest. His arms hadn't loosened all night. If anything, they'd tightened in sleep. She lifted her head slowly. His face in daylight looked younger, sharp jaw softened, dark lashes fanned against golden skin. The scar from the silver arrow was barely visible now, a thin silver line across perfect muscle. She traced it lightly with one fingertip. He didn't wake, but a low rumble vibrated through him, pleased. Her phone buzzed on the side table. Forgotten last night. She reached for it carefully. 3 missed calls from Mr. Hargrove. A text. "Where are you? Shop opens in 20. Don't make me dock your pay." Reality crashed back. She had a job, a life, a tiny apartment with unpaid bills. This, whatever this was, couldn't erase that. Cale's eyes opened. Golden, alert, instantly focused on her. "Morning, little one." His voice was sleep-rough, deeper than usual. He shifted, rolling them so she lay beneath him, caged gently by his big frame, not trapping, protecting. "You're thinking too hard," he murmured, nose brushing hers. "I have to go to work," she said weakly. "People will notice I'm gone." His growl was instant, soft, possessive. "No one touches what's mine today." He nuzzled her throat, lips grazing the spot that made her shiver. "My gammas are outside. They cleared the streets. We're going to the pack house. Together." Lila's stomach flipped. "I can't just disappear." "You're not disappearing. You're coming home." He kissed her slowly, deep, claiming, tasting of pine and promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were serious. "Rydian's pack is circling. I won't leave you exposed." His phone vibrated on the floor. He glanced at it, face hardening. "Trader's message. The human horde dies or the pack fractures." Lila went cold. Cale cupped her face. "He won't touch you, I swear it on the moon." He rose, pulling her up with him, slipped his oversized coat around her shoulders. It swallowed her whole, smelling entirely of him. Then he lifted her effortlessly against his chest. "Time to meet your pack," he said softly. Lila clung to him, heart pounding with fear and something dangerously close to hope. Chapter 9. Velvet Chains. The pack house loomed at the edge of the forest, dark timber and moonstone walls rising like a fortress under the pale morning sky. Cale carried Lila through the massive double doors without setting her down once. Guards bowed low as they passed. Whispers followed like wind through leaves. His private wing was quiet, almost reverent. Polished wood floors, high ceilings, one enormous bedroom at the end of the hall. One bed, wide, draped in deep charcoal linens, big enough for his frame and hers and the space he clearly intended to keep between them, for now. Cale set her gently on her feet. His coat still swallowed her, sleeves dangling past her fingertips. He didn't step back. "You'll sleep here," he said. Simple, final. Lila crossed her arms, trying to find some semblance of control. "I have an apartment, clothes, a job." "Your apartment is unsafe. Your job can wait." He moved closer, crowding her against the edge of the bed without touching. Heat rolled off him in waves. "Rydian's wolves are watching every exit from the city. You stay with me until he's ended." She lifted her chin. "And if I say no?" Golden eyes darkened. Not anger, something hungrier. He leaned in until his lips brushed her ear. "Then I'll chain you to this bed with velvet ropes and kiss every inch of protest out of you until you beg to stay." A shiver raced down her spine. Heat pooled low in her belly. She hated how much she wanted that image. Cale pulled back just enough to meet her gaze. His voice softened. "Please, little one, let me protect you. Let me keep you close." Lila searched his face. Lonely king, ruthless alpha, man who'd held her all night like she was air he needed to breathe. She exhaled shakily. "Okay." Relief flashed across his features. He cupped her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks. Then he kissed her, slow, deep, possessive. Hands slid down her sides, bunching the coat until it fell open. Fingers traced her ribs through her sweater, teasing the underside of her breasts. Thumbs circled, gentle pressure that made her gasp into his mouth. He growled low, "You taste like mine." They tumbled onto the bed. Kyle settled above her, weight braced on forearms so she wasn't crushed. He kissed her throat, nuzzled the spot where pulse fluttered wildly. Teeth grazed, never breaking skin. Hands roamed, over hips, along thighs, back up to cup her through fabric. Every touch reverent, every growl possessive. "I won't take more than you give," he rasped against her collarbone. "But gods, I want all of you." Lila arched into him, fingers in his hair. "Then hold me," she whispered. "All night, like before." He did. Arms locked around her, body curled protectively, lips brushing her temple in endless soft kisses until her breathing slowed and sleep finally claimed them both, tangled, warm, and dangerously close to forever. Chapter 10. The Betrayer's Strike. 3 days passed in a haze of velvet tension. The pack house felt alive with watchful eyes, gammas at every door, whispers in the halls about the human Luna who hadn't yet been marked. Kyle kept her close. Meals in his chambers, walks in the moonlit garden, nights tangled in sheets where kisses grew longer, hands bolder, but always stopping short of the final claim. Lila felt the pack's suspicion like cold drafts. Some bowed politely, others stared with thinly veiled contempt. She caught fragments of conversation. "A human? She'll dilute the bloodline." The king's gone soft. Tonight was the monthly council. The great hall glowed with torchlight. Alphas from allied packs sat at the long table. Kyle presided at the head, Lila beside him in silver silk that shimmered like moonlight on water. She kept her hands folded to hide the trembling. The ceremonial wine arrived, deep crimson in etched goblets. Tradition demanded the king drink first. Lila's gift flared without warning. A faint, sickly shimmer coated the rim of Kale's cup, like oil on poison. Her stomach dropped. Before she could think, she lunged. Her hand knocked the goblet from his fingers. It shattered on stone. Wine spread dark and accusing. Silence crashed. Kale's eyes snapped to hers, shock, then understanding. Rydian, the beta, rose slowly from his seat. Tall, lean, silver-streaked hair pulled back. His smile was ice. "Careful, human, that's treason." Growls rippled through the hall. Kale stood in a fluid motion, placing himself between Lila and the room. His voice was lethal calm. "She just saved my life again." Rydian laughed, short, bitter. "She's weakening you. Look at the council. Half already question your judgment." He moved, fast. Silver claws extended from his knuckles as he lunged for Lila's throat. Kale shifted mid-stride. Black fur exploded over muscle. Jaws snapped. He met Rydian in a blur of fury, slamming him to the floor. Claws raked, teeth tore, blood sprayed. The hall erupted, some wolves shifting to defend their king, others frozen in shock. Rydian's last rasp echoed as Kyle pinned him. "She'll destroy everything." Kale's massive wolf form rose, muzzle red. Golden eyes found Lila across the chaos. He shifted back, naked, blood-streaked, chest heaving. He crossed to her in 3 strides, cupped her face with shaking hands. "You saw it," he breathed. "You saved me." Tears burned her eyes. "I couldn't let you drink it." He pulled her against him, hard, possessive, uncaring of the watching pack. Lips crashed to hers in a kiss that tasted of blood and relief and raw devotion. The hall fell silent. Kyle broke away just enough to speak, voice carrying to every corner. "This woman is my fated mate. She sees what none of you can. She heals what none of you dare touch. Harm her and you harm me." He turned to the council, eyes blazing. "Rydian is dead. The traitor is gone and my Luna lives." Murmurs rose, some reluctant respect, some lingering doubt. Kale's arm banded Lila's waist. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "only for her. Under the full moon, I claim you before them all." Her heart pounded with fear and fierce aching hope. Chapter 11, The Claiming. The full moon hung heavy and silver above the clearing. Torches ringed the ancient stone circle. The entire Eclipse Pack gathered in tense silence. Hundreds of wolves, some shifted, some human, watched from the shadows. The air smelled of pine, smoke, and anticipation. Lila stood beside Kyle in flowing silver silk that caught moonlight like liquid starlight. Her heart thundered so loud she was sure they all heard it. Kyle wore only low-slung ceremonial trousers, his big body painted with glowing runes that pulsed in time with the moon. Scars from old battles gleamed faintly across his chest. He stepped forward first, dropping to one knee before the pack. The gesture silenced every whisper. "This woman," his voice carried clear and strong, "restored my life with a single touch when silver should have ended me. She saw poison no one else could. She healed a king who thought himself beyond saving." He lifted his gaze to hers, golden, fierce, tender. "Lila Evergreen is my fated mate, my chosen, my Luna. Any who challenge her challenge me." A low rumble rolled through the crowd, some approval, some lingering doubt. Kyle rose. He drew her close, one hand at the small of her back, the other tilting her chin. The pack watched as he lowered his head. His lips brushed hers once, soft, reverent. Then he kissed her deeply, pouring every unspoken vow into it. When he broke away, his breath was ragged. He turned her gently so her back pressed to his chest. One arm banded her waist, the other swept her hair aside, exposing the curve of her neck. "I claim you," he growled, loud enough for all to hear. "Body, heart, soul, forever." Teeth sank into the tender spot where neck met shoulder. Pain flared, sharp, bright, then exploded into white-hot pleasure. The mate bond snapped taut, golden threads weaving through her veins, her bones, her very being. Power surged. Her gift expanded, warm, radiant, until every wolf in the clearing felt old aches ease, scars soften. Lila gasped, arching against him. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not from pain, but from the sudden, overwhelming sense of belonging. Kyle licked the mark closed, sealing it with a kiss. He turned her to face the pack, arm possessive around her waist. "Behold your Luna," he roared. Howls answered, joyful, thunderous. The moon seemed to shine brighter. Lila looked up at her mate, marked and claimed and finally seen. She was no longer nobody. She was home. Chapter 12, Luna. 6 months later, the Eclipse Pack lands bloomed under late summer sun. The Moon Garden, once a quiet, shadowed place, now burst with night-blooming jasmine and silver-leafed roses that glowed softly even in daylight. Lila walked its winding paths on Kale's arm, her hand resting over his where it cradled the gentle swell of her belly. She wore simple white linen today, loose and flowing, the silver mark on her neck catching light every time she turned her head. The scar had healed into a delicate crescent, beautiful, permanent, a badge no one could ignore. Pups stirred inside her, tiny kicks that made Kale's golden eyes soften every few minutes. "You're glowing," he murmured, stopping to pull her close. Big hands framed her rounded stomach with reverent care. "Both of you." Lila laughed softly, leaning into his chest. His pine smoke scent still wrapped around her like the safest blanket in the world. "I feel like I swallowed the moon sometimes. They're strong already." Kyle nuzzled her temple, lips brushing the claiming mark. A low growl rumbled through him, pleased, possessive, endlessly tender. They get it from their mother, stubborn, brave, impossible to resist. The pack had changed too. The whispers of doubt were long gone. After the claiming, Lila's gift had rippled outward. Old battle scars faded, chronic pains eased, even fractured alliances mended as wolves felt her quiet strength firsthand. She wasn't just the human Luna anymore. She was their restorer, their heart. They reached the stone pedestal at the garden's center. The Lunar Bond Codex rested there, open to the final prophecy page. The ink still shimmered faintly, as though it remembered her touch. Kale traced the words with one finger. "A restorer not of ink, but of kings and packs, shall rise beside the shadow wolf. Together they heal what was broken." He looked down at her, eyes shining. "You did that. Every day since." Lila rose on her toes, pressing a slow kiss to his mouth. And you gave me everything I never knew I needed. A home, a family, a love that doesn't flinch. He deepened the kiss, unhurried, consuming, until a soft howl rose from the tree line. Their gammas, ever watchful, signaling all was well. Kyle broke away just enough to whisper against her lips. Forever isn't long enough, little one. Lila smiled, fingers threading through his dark hair. Then we'll make it feel like it. Hand in hand, marked and mated, King and Luna walked back toward the pack house, stronger together, bound by moon and touch and unbreakable hope. The Eclipse Pack thrived, and so did they. The end. If you felt the pull of the mate bond while listening to She Cradled the Big Head of the Wounded Stranger in her lap, unaware he was the Alpha King, if Kale's possessive growl made your heart race, if Lila's quiet strength and that electric first touch left you breathless and craving more, then hit that like button right now to let me know this story owned you. Drop A or type mine in the comments if you're already obsessed with these two. And if you want more slow burn alpha romance, scent-drenched tension, protective kings, and human mates who rise to become unstoppable Lunas, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next Fated Mate story drops soon, and trust me, you don't want to miss when the moon calls another unlikely pair together. Which part hit you hardest? The stormy night in the bookstore? The velvet restraint in his bed? The full moon claiming under a sky full of howls? Tell me below. I read every comment and it fuels the next tale. See you in the next one, little ones, until the moon pulls us back together.